home. As soon as we walked at least half the block from school, Mom said, "So, how'd it go? Did you like it?" "Not yet, Mom. When we get home," I said. The moment we got inside the house, I ran to my room and threw myself onto my bed. I could tell my mom didn't know what was up. And I guess I really didn't either. I felt very sad and a tiny bit happy at the exact same time. Kind of like laughing and crying feeling all over again. My dog, Daisy, followed me into the room, jumped up on the bed, and started licking me all over my face. "Who's a good girlie?" I said to her in like my dad voice. "Who's a good girlie?" "Is everything okay, Sweetness?" Mom asked. She wanted to sit down beside me, but Daisy was hogging the bed. "Excuse me, Daisy," she said, nudging Daisy over. "Were those kids not nice to you, Augie?" "Oh, no," I said, half lying. They were okay." "But were they nice? Mr. Tushman went out of his way to tell me what sweet kids they were." "Uh-huh." I nodded, but I kept looking at Daisy, kissing her on the nose and rubbing her ear until her back leg did that little flea scratching shake. "That boy Julian seemed especially nice," Mom said. "Oh, no, he wasn't the least bit nice. I like Jack, though. He was nice. I thought his name was Jack Will, but it's just Jack. Wait, maybe I'm getting them confused. Which one was the one with the dark hair that was brushed forward?" "That was Julian." "And he wasn't nice?" "No, he wasn't nice at all." "Oh." She thought about that for a second. "Okay, well, so is he the kind of kid who's one way in front of grown-ups and then another way in front of kids?" "Oh, yeah, I guess." "Ah, I hate those," she answered, nodding. "He was like, 'So, August, what's the deal with your face?'" I said, looking at Daisy the whole time. "Were you in a fire or something?" Mom didn't say anything when I looked up at her. I could tell she was completely shocked. "He didn't say it in a mean way," I said quickly. "He was just asking." Mom nodded. "But I really like Jack," I said. "He was like, 'Shut up, Julian.' And Charlotte was like, 'You're so rude, Julian.'" Mom nodded again. She presented her fingers over her forehead like she does when she's pushing against a headache. "I'm so sorry, Augie," she said quietly. Her cheeks were bright red. "No, it's okay, Mom, really." "You don't have to go to school if you don't want to, sweetie." "I want to," I said. "Augie." "Really, Mom, I want to." And I wasn't lying. First day jitters. Okay, so I admit that the first day of school, I was like so nervous that the butterflies in my stomach were more like pigeons flying around on my insides. Mom and Dad were probably a little nervous too, but they didn't act like it. They acted excited for me, taking pictures of me and Via before we left the house, since it was Via's first day of school too. Up until a few days before, we still weren't sure I would be going to school at all. After my tour of the school, Mom and Dad had reversed sides on whether I should go or not. Mom was now the one saying I shouldn't go, and Dad was the one saying I should go. He told me he was really proud of how I'd handled myself with Julian, and that I was turning into quite a strong man. And I heard him tell Mom that he now thought that she had been right all along. But Mom, I could tell, wasn't so sure anymore. When Dad told her that he and Via wanted to walk me to school today since it was on their way to the subway station, Mom seemed relieved. We would all be going together, so I guess I was too. Even though Beecher Prep was just a few blocks from our house, I've only seen on the block a couple times before. In general, I try to avoid blocks. When there are kids roaming around on a block, everybody knows me, and I know everybody, and every brick and every tree trunk and every crack in the sidewalk. I know Mr. Grimaldi, the lady who's always sitting by her window, and the guy who walks up and down the street whistling like a bird. I know the deli, the corner where Mom gets our bagels, and the waitresses at the coffee shop, who all call me honey and give me lollipops whenever they see me. I love my neighborhood of North River Heights, which is why it was so strange to be walking down the blocks feeling like it was all new to me suddenly. Amsford Avenue, a street I have been down a million times, looked totally different for some reason, full of people I'd never seen before, waiting for buses and pushing strollers. We crossed Amsford and turned to Heights Place. Via walked next to me like she usually does, and Mom and Dad were behind us. As usual, they turned the corner. We saw all the kids in front of the school, hundreds of them, talking to each other in little groups, laughing or standing with their parents, who were talking with other parents. I kept my head way down. Everyone's just as nervous as you are, said Via in my ear. Just remember that it's everyone's first day of school today, okay? Mr. Tushman was greeting students and parents in front of the school entrance. I have to admit, so far nothing bad had happened, and I didn't catch anyone staring at me or noticing me. Only once did I look up to see some girls looking at me away and whispering with their hands cupped over their mouths. But they looked away when they saw me and noticed them. We reached the front of the entrance. Okay, this is it, big boy, said Dad, putting his hands on top of my shoulders. Have a great first day. I love you, said Via, giving me a big hug and a kiss. You too, I said. I love you, Augie, said Dad, hugging me. Bye. Then Mom hugged me, but I could tell she was about to cry, which would have totally embarrassed me, so I just gave her a fast, hard hug, turned, and disappeared into the school. Locks. I went straight to room 301 on the third floor. Now, I was glad I'd gone there on the tour because I knew exactly where to go and didn't have to look up once. I noticed that some kids were definitely staring at me now. I did the thing I pretending not to notice. I went inside the classroom and the teacher was writing on the chalkboard while the other kids started sitting at a different desk. The desks were in half circles facing the chalkboard. So I chose the desk in the middle towards the back, which I thought would make it harder for everyone to see me. I still kept my head way down, just looking up enough from under my bangs to see everyone's feet. The desk started to fill up. I did notice that no one sat down next to me. A couple of times someone was about to sit next to me and then change his or her mind last minute. Hey, August, it was Charlotte giving me her little wave as she sat down the desk in front of the class. Why anyone would ever choose to sit in front of the class, I will never know. Hey, I said, nodding hello, and I noticed Julian was sitting a few seats away from her talking to some other kids. I know he saw me, but he didn't say hello. Suddenly, someone was sitting down next to me. It was Jack. Jack Will. What's up? He said, nodding at me. Hey, Jack, I answered, waving my hand. I wished immediately that I hadn't done that because it felt like kind of so uncool. Okay, kids. Okay, everybody, settle down, said the teacher, now facing us. She had written her name, Mrs. Petosa, on the chalkboard. Everyone, find a seat, please. Come in. She had a couple of kids who just walked in the room. There's a seat there, right there. She hadn't noticed me yet. Now, the first thing I want everyone to do is stop talking. And she noticed me. Put your backpacks down and quiet down. She had only hesitated for a millionth of a second, but I could tell the moment she saw me. Like I said, I'm used to it by now. I'm going to take attendance and do a seating chart, she continued, sitting on the edge of her desk. Next to her were 3 neat rows of accordion folders. When I call your name, you need to come up, and I'll hand you your folder with your name on it. It contains your class schedule and your combination lock, which you should not try to open until I tell you. Your locker number is written on the class schedule, but be forewarned that some lockers are not right outside this class, but they're down the hall. Before anyone even thinks of asking, no, you cannot switch lockers, and no, you cannot switch locks. And if there's a time at the end of the period where we're all going to know each other, know each other a little better, okay? Okay. She picked up the clipboard on her desk, started reading the names out loud. Okay, so Julian Albans. She looked up. Julian raised his hand and said, here, same time. Hi, Julian, she said, making a note on her seating chart. She picked the first folder and held it towards him. Come up, pick it up, she said in a no-nonsense tone. He got up and took it from her. Examina Chin. She handed her a folder. Each kid read off the names. As she went down the list, I noticed the seat next to me was the only one still empty, and even though there were 2 kids sitting at one desk just a few seats away, when she called the name of one of them, a big kid named Henry Joplin, who already looked like a teenager, said, "Henry, there's an empty seat right over there. Why don't you take that seat, okay?" She handed him his folder and pointed to the desk that sat next to me. Although I didn't look up when he sat at him directly, I could tell Henry did not want to move next to me. Just by the way he dragged his backpack on the floor, he came over like he was moving in slow motion. Then he plopped his backpack up real high on the right side of the desk, so it was kind of like a wall between my desk and mine. "Maya Makowitz," said Miss Petosa was saying. "Here," a girl from 4 desks over from me said. "Miles Norrie?" "Here," the kid said, sitting up with Henry Joplin, and he walked back to his desk. I saw him shoot Henry a poor you look. "August Pullman?" said Mrs. Petosa. "Here," I said quietly, raising my hand. "Hi, August," she said, smiling at me very nicely, and when I went up to get the folder, I kind of felt everyone's eyes burning in my back for a few seconds. I stood in the front of the class, and everybody looked down, and I walked back to my desk. I resisted spinning the counter combination when I sat down. And even though everyone else was doing it, but she had specifically told us not to, I was already pretty good at opening locks anyway, because I'd been using them on my bike. Henry kept trying to open his lock, but couldn't do it. He was getting frustrated, a kind of cursing underneath his breath. Mrs. Petosa called out the next few names. The last name was Jack Will. After he handed Jack's folder, "Okay, so everybody write your combination down somewhere safe that you won't forget it, okay? But if you do forget, which happens all the time, at least 3 points 2 times a semester, Mrs. Garcia has a list of combinations of the numbers. Now go ahead, take your locks out of your folders. Spend a couple minutes practicing how to open them. Though I know some of you went ahead and did it anyway." She was looking right at Henry when she said that. "And in the meantime, I'll tell you guys a little something about myself. And then you guys can tell me something a little bit about yourselves. We're going to get to know each other. Sound good?" "Good." She smiled at everyone, though I felt like I was smiling. She was smiling at me at the moment. It wasn't a shiny smile like Mrs. Garcia's smile, but it was a normal smile. Like she meant it. She looked very different from what I thought teachers were going to look like. I guess I thought she looked like Mrs. Fowl from Jimmy Neutron, the old lady with a big bun on top of her head. But in fact, she looked exactly like Mon Mothma from Star Wars Episode 6. Haircut kind of like that, kind of like a boy's. Big white shirt, kind of like a tunic. She turned around and started writing on the chalkboard. Henry still couldn't get his lock open, and he was getting more and more frustrated every time someone else popped one open. He got really annoyed when he saw I was able to open mine on the first try. The funny thing is, if he hadn't put that backpack up between us, I most definitely would have offered to help him. Around the room. Mrs. Petosa told us a little thing about her. It was boring stuff, like where she originally came from and how she always wanted to be a teacher and how she left her job at Wall Street about 6 years ago to pursue her dream to teach kids. She ended it by asking if anyone had any questions, and Julian raised his hand. "Yes," she said, remembering his name, Julian. "That's cool how you pursuing your dreams," he said. "Thank you." "You're welcome," he smiled profoundly. "Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Julian?" "Actually, here's what I want everyone to do. Thinking of 2 things you want everybody in the room to know about you. Actually, wait a minute. How about you come from the Beecher Lower School?" About half of the kids raised their hands. "Okay, a few of you already know each other, but the rest of you, I guess, are new to this school, right? Okay, so everyone think of 2 things you want other people to know about you. And if you know some of the other kids, try to think of something they don't already know about you, okay? Okay, let's start with Julian. We'll go around the room." Julian scrunched up his face and started tapping his forehead like he was trying to think really hard. "Okay, whenever you're ready," said Mrs. Petosa. "Okay, number 1 is that, do me a favor and start with your name, okay?" Mrs. Petosa interrupted. "It'll help us all, everybody remember." "Oh, okay." So, my name is Julian, and number one thing I'd like to tell everyone about myself is that I just got a Battleground Mystic for my Wii, and it's totally awesome. And number two thing is that I got a ping pong table this summer. Very nice. I love ping pong, said Mrs. Petosa. Does anyone have any questions for Julian? Is Battleground Mystic multiplayer or one player, said one kid named Miles. Not those kinds of questions, guys, said Mrs. Petosa. Okay, so about you, she pointed to Charlotte, probably because her desk was closest to the front. Oh, sure. Charlotte didn't hesitate even 1 second. She knew exactly what she wanted to say. My name is Charlotte. I have 2 sisters, and we just got a new puppy named Suki in July, and we got her from the animal shelter, and she's so cute. That's great, Charlotte. Thank you, said Mrs. Petosa. Okay, then who's next? Lamb to the slaughter. Like lamb to the slaughter, something you say about someone who's going somewhere calmly, but knowing that something unpleasant's about to happen. I Googled it last night. That's what I was thinking when Mrs. Petosa called my name, and suddenly it was my turn. My name is August, I said. Yeah, I kind of mumbled it. What? Said someone. Can you speak up, honey? Said Mrs. Petosa. My name is August, I said louder, forcing myself to look up. I have a sister named Via and a dog named Daisy, and, that's wonderful, said Mrs. Petosa. Anyone have any questions for August? No one said anything. Okay, you're next, said Mr. Petosa for Jack. Wait, I have a question, August, said Julian, raising his hand. Why do you have that tiny braid in the back of your hair? Is that like a Padawan thing? Yeah, I shrugged, nodded. What's a Padawan thing, Mrs. Petosa, smiling at me. It's from Star Wars, answered Julian. A Padawan is a Jedi apprentice. Oh, interesting, answered Mrs. Petosa, looking at me. So, are you into Star Wars, August? I guess. I nodded, looking up because I really wanted to just slide under the desk. What's your favorite character? Julian asked. And I started thinking maybe he wasn't so bad. Jango Fett. What about Darth Sidious? He said. Do you like him? Okay, guys, you can talk about Star Wars stuff at recess, said Mrs. Petosa cheerfully. But let's keep going. We haven't heard anything from Jack. She said, Jack? Now it was Jack's turn to talk, but I admit I didn't hear a word he said. Maybe no one got the Darth Sidious thing, but I did. Maybe Julian meant nothing at all, but in Star Wars Episode 3, The Revenge of the Sith, Darth Sidious' face gets burned by the Sith lightning, and it becomes totally deformed, and his skin gets all shriveled up. His whole face is just kind of melts. I peeked at Julian. He was looking at me. Yeah, he knew what he was saying. Choose kind. There was a lot of shuffling around when the bell rings, and everybody got up to leave. I checked my schedule, and it said my next class was English, room 321. I didn't stop to see if anyone else in my homeroom was going that way. I just zoomed out of the class down the hall and sat down as far from I could from as possible. The teacher, a really tall man with a yellow beard, was writing on the chalkboard. Kids came in laughing and talking in groups. I didn't look up. Basically, the same thing happened in the homeroom. Happened again. No one sat next to me except Jack, who was joking around with some kids who went in to our homeroom. I could tell Jack was the kind of kid other kids like. He had a lot of friends. He made people laugh. When the second bell rang, everyone got quiet, and the teacher turned around. He faced us, and he said his name was Mr. Brown. And then he started talking about what we would be doing this semester. And at a certain point, somewhere at A Wrinkle in Time and Shen of the Sea, he noticed me, but kept right on talking. I mostly doodled in my notebook while he talked, but once in a while I would sneak a look at the other students. Charlotte was in the class, so was Julian and Henry. Miles wasn't. Mr. Brown wrote on the blackboard a big word in letters Precept. Okay, everybody, write that word down at the very top of your first page of your English notebook. As he told us to do, we said, okay, so who can tell me what this word is? What is a precept? Does anyone know? No one raised their hand. Mr. Brown smiled and nodded and turned around and wrote on the board again. A precept equals rules about really important things. It's like a motto, someone called out. Like a motto, said Mr. Brown, nodding and continued writing on the board. Like a famous quote, like lines from a fortune cookie. Any saying, a ground rule that can motivate you. Basically, the precept is anything that helps guide us, making us make our decisions about really important things. He wrote on the chalkboard and turned around and faced us. So, what are the really important things? He asked us. A few kids raised their hands and pointed at their favorite answers, and he wrote them on the chalkboard. Really, really sloppy handwriting. Rules, schoolwork, homework. What else? He said. And he wrote, not even turning around, just call things out. He wrote things on the board. Family, parents, pets. One girl called out the environment. He wrote the environment on the board. Then he wrote on the chalkboard and added our world. Sharks. They eat dead things in the ocean, one boy said. A kid named Reed from Mr. Brown wrote sharks. Bees, seatbelts, recycling, friends. Okay, said Mr. Brown, writing all those things down. He turned around when he finished writing and faced us again. But no one's named the most important thing of all. He looked around. God, said one of the kids. I could tell it was even though Mr. Brown wrote God down. And that wasn't the answer either he was looking for. Without saying anything, he wrote, who are we? In huge letters on the board. Who are we? The underlying each word as he said it. Who are we? Us. Right. What kind of people are we? What kind of person are you? Isn't that the most important thing of all? Isn't that the kind of question we should all be asking ourselves all the time? What kind of person am I? Did anyone happen to notice the plaque next to the door of the school? Anyone read what it says? Anyone? He looked around and no one had the answer. It says, know thyself, he said, smiling and nodding. And learning who we are is what we're going to do in here. I thought we were going to learn English, Jack cracked. Made everyone laugh. Oh, yeah, we're going to do that too, said Mr. Brown, which I thought was very cool of him. He turned around and wrote a big, huge letters on the board and spread them out way across the chalkboard. Mr. Brown's September Precept. When given the choice between choosing right or being kind, choose kind. Okay, everybody, he said, facing us again. I want you to start a brand new section of your notebook and call it Mr. Brown's Precepts. He kept talking as we were writing and telling us what to do. Put today's date at the top of the page, and from now on to the beginning of every month, I'm going to write a new Mr. Brown's Precept on the chalkboard, and you're going to write it down in your notebook, and then we're going to discuss that precept and what it means. And at the end of each month, you're going to write an essay about it, about what it means to you. So by the end of the year, you will all have your own list of precepts to take away with you. Over the summer, I will ask my students to come up with their very own personal precept and write it on a postcard and mail it to me from wherever you are on summer vacation. People really do that? A girl once said, name I didn't know. Oh yeah, he answered. People really do that. I've had students send me precepts year after year, graduated from high school, and that actually gets pretty amazing. He paused and stroked his beard. But anyways, next summer, that's a long way off. I know, he joked, made us laugh. So, somebody and everybody relax a bit, take attendance, and then when we're finished with that, I'll start telling you about the fun stuff we're going to be doing this year in English. He pointed to Jack when he said this, which was so funny. So we all laughed. As I wrote down Mr. Brown's September Precept, I suddenly realized that I was going to like school, no matter what.